A red Ferrari had been covered with a gray tarp for 30 days in the rear parking lot of a mechanic's shop in Mexico City. No one had touched it. No one had even dared to look at it. Dust accumulated on the fabric like ashes of forgotten promises until a desperate man, unemployed and hopeless, reached out his trembling hand toward the cold metal and recognized something impossible, something that brought him to his knees on the oil-stained concrete. What that mechanic discovered under the hood would change his life forever, but it would also force him to face the worst mistake of his past, because that Ferrari was not just any car. It was living proof of a crime he had committed 20 years ago when he was young, stupid, and desperate. And now that buried secret had returned to destroy him or to save him. Fate had laid all the cards on the table, and Rodrigo Mendoza Santos would have to play the riskiest hand of his life. Rodrigo gritted his teeth as he walked under the scorching midday sun along Insurgentes Avenue. The heat from the pavement penetrated the worn soles of his old boots, 42 years old, and he felt as if he were carrying the weight of 80 on his slumped shoulders. 3 months, 3 damn months without finding stable work. The big luxury car companies no longer wanted him around. Some said he was overqualified for their needs. Others that he was out of date with new technologies. Small repair shops were wary of someone who had worked on Porsches and Lamborghinis, and premium dealerships simply closed their doors when they heard his name. The truth was simpler and much crueler. No one hires a man who was fired for allegedly stealing high-value parts. The accusation was completely false, of course, but the stigma had stuck to his reputation like burnt grease on an old overall. No matter how much he scrubbed, the stain remained. His cell phone vibrated in the back pocket of his worn jeans. He took it out with hands that trembled slightly from hunger. It was a text message from his ex-wife, Monica. The words appeared on the screen like a court ruling. Rodrigo, we need to talk about Valeria. If you don't get a stable job, the judge will give full custody to the other parent. This isn't a threat, it's reality. The children need stability. I'm so sorry, but it's what's best for her. Rodrigo read the message 3 times as if the words would magically change with each reading. They didn't. Each word was a rusty knife twisting in his chest. Valeria, his 10-year-old princess, with bright eyes and contagious laughter. The only real reason he kept breathing every morning. The only light in his dark tunnel. He couldn't lose her. He simply couldn't. If he lost his daughter, he would lose his last reason to keep fighting. He put his phone in his pocket and continued walking toward his destination, his legs heavy as lead. Over the past few weeks, he had sent his resume to more than 50 different places, large workshops, small workshops, dealerships, parts stores, even gas stations with mechanical service. Only one had responded with anything resembling interest. Taller Hernandez, a modest family business located in the Narvarte neighborhood. It wasn't much according to the photos on the internet, just a couple of work bays, old tools, walls painted a faded blue that were once bright. But at this point in his life, Rodrigo couldn't afford to be picky. He needed anything, anything at all, even if it meant sweeping floors or washing cars, anything that would allow him to prove to the family court judge that he was a responsible and capable father. He arrived at the shop 15 minutes before his appointment. The facade was exactly as he had imagined it. Humble, hardworking, honest, with a hand-painted sign that read, Taller Mecánico Hernandez. 3 generations of experience. The metal doors were wide open, revealing the dark interior, where the silhouettes of several cars undergoing repairs rested like patients in a hospital ward. The familiar smell of gasoline, burnt oil, welding, and hot metal. It welcomed him like an old friend he hadn't seen in a long time. That smell was his true home. No matter where he lived, auto repair shops would always be the only place where Rodrigo Mendoza felt completely himself. A burly man of about 60 emerged from the shadows inside. Don Esteban Hernandez had a thick gray mustache, huge hands permanently stained with grease, and eyes that had seen all kinds of mechanical and human problems. He wore navy blue overalls with oil stains and the name Esteban all embroidered on the chest pocket. He looked him up and down with the appraising gaze of someone who can judge a person's character in seconds. "Are you Mendoza?" he asked in a hoarse voice that betrayed decades of cigar smoking. wiping his hands on a dirty red rag hanging from his belt. Yes, Mr. Hernandez, Rodrigo Mendoza Santos. I came for the temporary job you posted on the Facebook group, Rodrigo replied, trying to sound confident and professional, even though his stomach was growling with hunger and his knees were shaking with nervousness. He hadn't eaten anything since the day before, just a weak coffee and two cheap sweet rolls. That was it. Don Esteban nodded slowly, studying him with those piercing eyes. I read your resume. You've worked in very fancy places, Mercedes, Porsche, even Lamborghini. What is someone with your experience doing looking for work in my little workshop? It was the question Rodrigo had been dreading. Could he lie, make up some elaborate story, or could he be honest and risk losing this opportunity? He decided to bet on honesty. He had nothing left to lose. Anyway, the truth is, Don Esteban, I was fired from my last job on false accusations of theft. I didn't steal anything, but my word is worthless against that of the managers. Since then, no one will hire me. I've been out of work for 3 months. I'm about to lose custody of my daughter. I need this opportunity more than I can explain in words. I'm not going to lie to you or steal from you. I just need a chance to prove that I'm still good at what I do. The silence that followed was so heavy that Rodrigo felt he could touch it. Don Esteban stared at him for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, the old mechanic sighed deeply and nodded. I appreciate your honesty, kid. That's worth more than 1,000 fancy resumes. Look, I need someone for at least 2 weeks. One of my mechanics, Javier, fell off a ladder and broke his leg in 3 places. He'll be recovering for months. I'll pay you 200 pesos a day. Cash, at the end of each day, no formal contracts for now. If you work well and prove yourself reliable, maybe I can offer you something more permanent later. Is that okay with you or not? 00 pesos a day, 1,400 pesos a week. It was a fraction of what he used to earn, but it was infinitely more than the 0 pesos he was earning now. It's perfect for me, Don Esteban. You won't regret it, I promise. I hope so, Mendoza. I hope so. Start tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp, not a minute late. Punctuality tells me everything I need to know about a man. I'll be here at 7, sir. Thank you, really. Thank you very much. Rodrigo left the workshop with something resembling hope, blooming timidly in his chest. It wasn't much. It wasn't the magic solution to all his problems, but it was something real and tangible. 2 weeks of guaranteed work, 14 days to prove his worth. Well, trust. To have something concrete to show the judge. When Monica filed her request for full custody, he would have 14 days to save his relationship with Valeria. As he walked toward the bus stop, something caught his attention in the back parking lot of the workshop. A large shape covered with a dusty gray tarp, hidden between 2 old pickup trucks and a pile of used tires. The edges of something bright red peeked out from under the dirty fabric. She frowned curiously. An abandoned sports car in a place like this was as out of place as finding a diamond in a garbage dump. The next morning, Rodrigo arrived at the Hernandez workshop at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the agreed time. He wanted to make the best possible impression from day one. Don Esteban was already there, of course, drinking steaming coffee from a disposable cup and reviewing a work order in his small office filled with old calendars and stacked invoices. Punctual, I like that, the old man grumbled approvingly, pointing to the wall clock that read 6:47. Coffee's in the pot if you want some. Today you're going to check out that gray Nissan Sentra. He pointed to one of the bays, where a dented sedan with its hood already open awaited serious transmission problems. The customer says it makes strange noises when shifting from third to fourth gear. Check it out thoroughly. Give me a detailed diagnosis and a repair cost estimate if you finish early. There's a Chevy pickup that needs its brakes checked. Lots of work, not much time. Rodrigo put on his own overalls that he had brought from home, washed but old and patched in several places, and got to work immediately. His hands moved with muscle memory developed over more than 20 years of experience. He disassembled parts with precision, assessed damage with an expert eye, and made mental calculations of costs and times. Auto mechanics was the only thing he really knew how to do well in this world. He hadn't gone to college, he didn't have fancy degrees hanging on his walls, but he understood engines the way some men understand music or poetry. It was his secret language, his art form, his raison d'etre. For years, he had worked exclusively on imported luxury cars, Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi, even the occasional Lamborghini and Ferrari. She knew every sound, every vibration, every normal and abnormal behavior of those million-dollar engines that were worth more than some houses, but now she was diagnosing the worn-out manual transmission of a 2008 Nissan Sentra with 300,000 kilometers on it in a workshop that permanently smelled of dampness and rancid oil. And you know what? She didn't care at all. It was honest work. It was dignity. It was hope. By mid-morning, Rodrigo had finished with the Nissan. The transmission needed a complete replacement of the clutch, flywheel, and valeros. He gave the detailed diagnosis to Don Esteban, who checked his work. He inspected the damaged parts that Rodrigo had carefully placed on a metal tray and nodded with clear approval. "You know exactly what you're doing, Mendoza. Your experience shows." "Good. Very good. Now I need you to do me a special favor." Don Esteban led him to the back of the workshop, to the parking area where Rodrigo had seen the mysterious shape covered with the gray tarp yesterday. "I need you to check that car and tell me honestly what's wrong with it and whether it's worth trying to repair it or if we'd be better off selling it for scrap to free up some of the space it's taking up." Rodrigo's heart leapt inexplicably in his chest. The one covered with the tarp. That Ferrari. A millionaire woman left it here exactly 30 days ago. She said she would be back in a week to authorize the repairs, but she never returned. "She doesn't answer my phone calls or respond to my messages. I don't know what to do with the car anymore. I'm seriously considering taking legal action to sell it and recover the storage costs. But first, I want to know if it's really worth it or if it's just a piece of expensive junk." Ferrari, junk. The two words together were mechanical blasphemy. Rodrigo felt a physical twinge in his stomach as if someone had punched him. No Ferrari, regardless of its condition, should ever end up being sold as scrap metal. It was like burning a painting by a Renaissance master to heat a house. He walked toward the covered vehicle with steps that echoed on the cracked concrete of the parking lot. His hands trembled slightly as he reached the edge of the gray tarp. With almost irreverent care, like someone discovering an archaeological treasure, he lifted the dusty fabric and removed it completely. What he saw literally took his breath away. A bright Corsa red Ferrari F8 Tributo that gleamed even under the thick layer of accumulated dust. The aggressive aerodynamic lines characteristic of Italian supercars. The side air intakes like shark gills. The uniquely designed alloy wheels. The golden prancing horse emblem proudly mounted in the center of the hood. It was a masterpiece of Italian automotive engineering, designed to reach speeds of over 300 km/h, equipped with a 3.9-liter UP8 twin-turbo engine that generated 720 horsepower. A car that easily cost more than 6 million pesos was here. Abandoned like a broken toy in the parking lot of a neighborhood repair shop, Rodrigo slowly circled the vehicle, examining every detail with professional eyes that didn't miss a thing. There were deep, unsightly scratches on the driver's door, as if it had scraped against something concrete. Significant dents in the rear bumper. One of the taillights was broken. All four tires were completely flat, probably from sitting unused for so long. The paint had several chips in minor damage. Someone had crashed or hit this car, probably in a minor traffic accident or perhaps in a parking lot, and simply abandoned it here. What kind of person does something like that? Who has so much money that they can leave a $6 million Ferrari forgotten in a mechanic's shop and never return? Mexico's economic inequality hit him in the face like a slap. While he struggled to earn 200 pesos a day to survive, someone had so much money that they completely forgot about an Italian supersports car. He carefully opened the front hood, looking for the release mechanism hidden under the Ferrari emblem. The 3.9L i8 engine was there, imposing, complex, beautiful in its precise engineering. The twin turbochargers mounted in a hot V configuration, the multiple sensors and computers, each component designed to extract the maximum possible performance. But the engine was silent, cold, dead. Rodrigo leaned in to inspect it more closely, looking for obvious signs of damage or problems, and then he saw it. A small, almost microscopic mark almost invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Engraved with a burin on the bottom of the engine block, hidden where no one would ever see it. An alphanumeric code, RM04, November 2004. Rodrigo Mendoza. Santos's entire world came to an abrupt halt. The sound of traffic on the avenue disappeared. The voices of the other mechanics working in the shop fell silent. His vision narrowed until all he could see was that code engraved in the metal. His legs buckled dangerously. He had to brace himself with both hands on the fender of the Ferrari to keep from falling face first to the ground. His breathing became rapid and shallow. His heart pounded in his chest like a jackhammer. RM. Rodrigo Mendoza. 04. The fourth day of the month. November 2004. The exact, unforgettable date. The personal code he himself had engraved with his own trembling hands 20 years ago, following the precise orders of dangerous men who had used him as a disposable pawn in a dirty, criminal game that ruined lives. This Ferrari, this very car abandoned in front of him, was the first luxury vehicle he had helped dismantle when he was just 22 years old, when he was completely desperate, with no money to eat, with no real options for the future, when he had fallen into the dirty hands of Javier El Tuercas Maldonado, a professional dismantler of stolen cars who operated from a hidden clandestine workshop in the most dangerous industrial areas of Ecatepec. Rodrigo had been just an apprentice mechanic at the time, earning a pittance that was barely enough to rent a windowless room in a horrible neighborhood. El Tuercas had offered him 5,000 pesos in cash, 5 times his entire monthly salary, just to help with a special job. You're just going to mark the parts with codes to track them on the black market? Kid, that's all. No one will ever find out. Quick and easy money. But someone did find out. The original owner of that Ferrari had been a man named Alberto Duran Villarreal, a successful businessman in the technology sector who had bought that car after years of hard work. He loved that car more than almost anything else in the world when it was stolen right out of the private garage of his home in the exclusive Chapultepec Hills neighborhood. Alberto moved absolutely every resource available to get it back. He spent entire fortunes hiring private investigators. He offered huge rewards. He pressured the authorities. He followed every lead, no matter how remote, but he never found it. The car was completely dismantled in just 3 days of intense work. The valuable parts were quickly sold on the international black market. The chassis was supposedly crushed and recycled as scrap metal. Or at least, that was what Rodrigo had believed for 20 years of constant guilt. Apparently, someone with resources and knowledge had rebuilt this car using many of the original parts that had been salvaged. Someone had invested time, money, and effort into bringing this Ferrari back to life. And now, for some reason Rodrigo couldn't understand, it was here in this modest workshop, exactly where he had gotten his first honest job in 3 months. The coincidence was so impossible that it seemed like divine intervention or cosmic punishment, or both. Rodrigo closed the hood with hands that were shaking uncontrollably. He walked back to the main area of the workshop like a zombie, where Esteban looked at him with a concerned expression. "What's wrong, kid? You look pale as a ghost. Are you okay?" Yes, Don Esteban, I'm fine. It's just that it's a lot of car to be abandoned like that." "It's impressive," Rodrigo managed to say, although his voice sounded hollow and distant, even to his own ears. "Tell me about it." "The owner is a millionaire businesswoman. According to what I've been told, her name is Isabella Duran Villarreal. She has several technology or software development companies or something like that. Very successful, very rich. That's why I don't understand why she just left the car and never came back. But it's been 30 full days now. If she doesn't show up in the next few days, I'm going to have to take legal action to sell it and recover my costs." Duran, the surname, hit Rodrigo like a brutal hammer blow. Isabella Duran Villarreal, daughter of Alberto Duran Villarreal, had to be his daughter. It couldn't be a mere coincidence. The surname, the Ferrari, everything fit together perfectly like pieces of a macabre puzzle. The universe, God, fate, karma, or whatever you want to call that mysterious force, had brought him face to face with the greatest sin he had ever committed in his life. The mistake that had haunted him for 20 years in nightmares and constant guilt, that now that buried past had returned with a vengeance. That night, Rodrigo couldn't sleep at all. He lay in his cheap bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of his 3 by 3 meter rented room. For hours, he listened to the constant shouting of neighbors fighting through the paper-thin walls, the barking of stray dogs, the sirens of ambulances and patrol cars, the garbage trucks passing by. But none of that noise really penetrated his consciousness. His mind was completely occupied, processing the impossible. He thought of Valeria, her huge brown eyes that sparkled with intelligence and kindness, her smile that lit up even the darkest and most miserable day. How she said, "I love you, Daddy," every time they said goodbye. He thought about how she still saw him as her hero, even though he knew he didn't deserve that title. He thought about Alberto Duran Villarreal, a man who had died years ago of a massive heart attack, according to what Rodrigo had obsessively researched when guilt began to eat him alive. Alberto never got his beloved Ferrari back. He died with a literally broken heart, not only because of the stolen car, but because of everything he had sacrificed and lost, searching for it in vain. His health deteriorated due to stress. His company was almost bankrupt from spending so much on investigations. His family was suffering, and now Isabella, his daughter, had somehow recovered that cursed car. She had probably bought it at some international auction of recovered vehicles, without knowing the whole story, without knowing all the dark details, and had abandoned it in a workshop because she didn't have the money for repairs. The irony was so cruel that it physically hurt. Rodrigo made a decision on that dark and endless night, a decision that surprised even himself, a decision that was completely stupid from any logical perspective, potentially suicidal for his future, but necessary for his tortured soul. He was going to restore that Ferrari with his own hands. He was going to restore it to its original glory. He was going to invest every penny he had, every free minute, every drop of sweat and blood. And when the job was completely finished, he would personally seek out Isabella Duran Villarreal and tell her the whole truth without filters or excuses. The whole story from beginning to end, even if she hated him with every fiber of her being, even if she immediately called the police to have him arrested, even if she sued him and sent him straight to jail, even if he lost everything, including his new job and custody of Valeria, it was the only right thing to do. It was the only possible way to pay his unpayable moral debt. It was the only way to cleanse his tainted soul and be able to look his daughter in the eyes without having horrible lies buried in his rotten heart. The next morning, Rodrigo waited until the end of the workday when the other mechanics had gone home. He nervously approached Don Esteban, who was closing the cash register and preparing to close the shop. "Don Esteban, I need to talk to you about something important." The old man looked at him curiously. "Tell me, Mendoza, I want to make you a business proposal. Let me completely restore that Ferrari. I'll provide absolutely all the necessary parts. I'll put in all the work, all the time, all the effort. I just need you to allow me to use the workshop and the tools after normal working hours. In return, when the owner finally returns and the car is completely restored and she sells it or gets it back, you keep 30% of any profit or payment that results. It's a completely fair deal, and I guarantee you won't lose anything." Don Esteban looked at him as if he had just announced plans to fly to the moon on a bicycle. "You're completely crazy, kid. Where the hell are you going to get the money for Ferrari parts? Those spare parts cost a fortune. A single original headlight probably costs more than your entire month's salary here. I have some savings put away." Rodrigo lied shamelessly. What he actually had in his bank account was exactly 50 cents. That was literally his entire financial wealth in the whole world. But he would find a way. There was always a way when the need was desperate enough. The old man scratched his gray beard thoughtfully, studying Rodrigo with those eyes that had seen too much in 60 years of life. "You're completely crazy, Rodrigo Mendoza. That's clearer than water, but I like you. I see something in you. Desperation, yes, but also honor, also integrity. Qualities that are increasingly rare in this rotten world. All right, I accept your proposal. You can use the workshop every night and after we officially close. You can use my tools with care, but listen to me very carefully. Don't ruin any of my equipment. And if the millionaire owner shows up before you finish your impossible project, she will decide what to do with her own car. Understood? Understood?" "Perfectly, Don Esteban. Thank you very much." Really, you won't regret this. I swear. I hope so, kid. I sincerely hope so. Thus began the most beautiful, exhausting, and painful ordeal of Rodrigo Mendoza's entire life. During the day, he worked normally in the shop repairing regular cars for regular customers. Nissans with blown transmissions, Volkswagens with mysterious electrical problems, Fords with engines that made strange noises, Chevrolets that needed complete tune-ups. Honest work that gave him just enough to survive day to day. But at night, Erdona Esteban closed the main doors and all the other mechanics went home to their families. Rodrigo was left completely alone with a red Ferrari under the flickering fluorescent lights of the empty workshop. He began systematically with the most basic and fundamental things. He completely changed the engine oil using the highest quality synthetic oil he could find. He replaced all the filters, air, gasoline, oil. He meticulously checked every electrical cable, every rubber hose, every connection, every screw, every nut. He used all of his meager savings of 1,200 pesos to buy the first absolutely essential parts at cheap spare parts stores. He called old contacts from the past, people who owed him favors or who simply respected him professionally, asked them for help, got special discounts, negotiated prices, begged when necessary, but the scarce money ran out terribly fast, painfully fast. By the second week of night work, Rodrigo had absolutely nothing left in his bank account. 0 pesos, nothing. He began skipping meals to save money. First he stopped eating dinner, then he stopped eating lunch as well. In the end, he was surviving on cheap sweet bread in the morning and watered-down black coffee throughout the day. Nothing else. His body began to protest violently. He felt constantly dizzy, weak, shaky. His cheeks sank noticeably. He lost almost 13 pounds in 2 weeks. The circles under his eyes turned dark, like bruises, but he kept working. Every night he continued to restore the Ferrari, piece by piece, screw by screw, with hands that trembled from hunger and exhaustion, but never lost their professional precision. He sold his old cell phone for 900 pesos and bought an original oxygen sensor for the exhaust system. He sold his wristwatch, the only valuable gift his deceased father had given him before he died, for 2,300 pesos. And he bought high-performance brake pads and competition brake fluid. He sold his favorite denim jacket, his least worn sneakers, even his extra blanket. Everything became parts for the Ferrari. The restoration became a total obsession that consumed every thought, every moment, every particle of his existence. One cold night in the middle of the month, as Rodrigo patiently sanded the deep dents in the rear bumper by hand using very fine grit sandpaper, he heard a small voice behind him that made him freeze completely. Dad, he turned so fast he almost dropped the can of body filler he was using. Valeria was standing there in the dark workshop with her unicorn school backpack slung over one slender shoulder. She was wearing her favorite pink hoodie with cat ears on the hood. Her huge brown eyes were wide open, looking alternately at her gaunt father and the bright red Ferrari that dominated the workshop space. Fresh tears ran down her round cheeks. Valeria, what are you doing here, sweetheart? How did you get here? Does your mom know where you are? The questions poured out of Rodrigo's mouth as he quickly put down his tools and ran to his daughter. I ran away from home, Daddy. I borrowed money from Grandma for the Uber. I told the driver to bring me to this address. Her lower lip trembled violently as she tried not to cry anymore. Mom was on the phone with the lawyer. I heard them. He said you're going to stop being my dad, that you won't be able to see me anymore. Is that true, Daddy? Don't you love me anymore? Rodrigo Mendoza. Santos's heart broke into exactly 1 billion microscopic pieces. Each fragment hurt like glass cutting into raw flesh. He immediately knelt in front of his princess, took her cold little hands in his, rough and permanently stained with grease and oil. He looked her straight in the eyes with all the intensity and love he could express. No, my precious love, never, never, never in 1 million years will I ever stop being your dad. No matter what any judge, any piece of paper, any person in the entire universe says. You are my daughter. You are my whole life. You are the only reason I get up every morning. No matter what happens, I will always be your dad, and you will always be my beautiful princess. Do you understand me? Do you believe me? Then why does mom say those horrible things? Rodrigo sighed deeply, searching for the right words to explain a terribly complicated situation to a 10-year-old girl. Because your dad made some very big mistakes in the past, my love. Mistakes that I'm still paying for. And now I'm trying with all my might to fix those mistakes so I can be the dad you deserve to have. But I need your help. I need you to be very strong and brave for me. Can you do that? Valeria nodded with genuine determination, wiping her tears with the back of her sweatshirt sleeve. I'm strong, Daddy, stronger than anyone. What are you doing with that beautiful red car? Rodrigo decided to tell her a carefully edited and softened version of the whole truth, that this beautiful car had been stolen many, many years ago by very bad people. That when he was very young, foolish, and desperate, he had helped those bad people with that terrible crime. And now, 20 years later, fate had given him the impossible opportunity to repair that horrible mistake, restoring the car with his own hands and returning it to its rightful owner, who was working day and night, sacrificing everything he had to clear his conscience and prove to the universe that he had truly changed and become a better person. Valeria listened in absolute and deep silence, carefully processing every word with her brilliant and mature mind. Her eyes never left her father's face. When Rodrigo finished his explanation, Valeria looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that made him cry uncontrollably. So you're being a real hero, Daddy, like the superheroes in the movies who fix their mistakes and save the day. Rodrigo laughed through the tears that now ran freely down his face. No, my beautiful love, I'm no hero. I'm just trying to be a good and decent man. It's exactly the same thing, Daddy. Real heroes are good people who fix their mistakes, even when it's very difficult. From that transformative night on, Valeria became his secret accomplice and his most dedicated assistant. Every weekend, when she managed to sneak out of the house without her mother becoming too suspicious, she would come running to the workshop. She would hand Rodrigo specific tools when he needed them and clean small parts with rags and solvent. She organized screws and nuts by size in labeled boxes. She kept him company during the long, lonely hours. She brought him sandwiches she made herself, hidden in her kitchen, and most importantly, she gave him concrete reasons to keep going when exhaustion and despair threatened to completely overwhelm him. And one Saturday afternoon, when Rodrigo explained to her with horrible shame that he had absolutely no money to buy the last critical pieces he desperately needed to finish the restoration, Valeria did something that left her father simultaneously devastated and proud to the point of physical pain. She disappeared for 2 hours, and when she returned, she was struggling to carry a worn shoebox filled to the brim with coins, crumpled bills, and a few newer bills folded neatly. I sold all my Barbie dolls at the neighborhood flea market, Daddy. I also sold my old video game console, which I hardly ever used anymore, and I asked Grandma and Aunt Lucia for help, explaining everything to them. Here's $3,800. Exactly. I counted it 3 times to be absolutely sure. It's for your car, Daddy, so you can finish it and be a hero. Rodrigo Mendoza cried. He cried like he hadn't cried since he was a little boy. He cried uncontrollably and violently. He hugged his daughter to his chest and cried, soaking her pink sweatshirt with his hot tears of pain, shame, pride, and unconditional love. He absolutely did not deserve this perfect angel. He did not deserve this pure and unconditional love. He did not deserve this unwavering loyalty, but he had it, and that meant he could not, would not, was not allowed to give up. He had to finish what he had started for Valeria, for Alberto Duran, for Isabella, for himself. With his daughter's sacrificial money, Rodrigo bought the last absolutely essential parts. A complete body panel to replace the irreparably damaged rear bumper. Exact automotive-grade red paint with the precise Ferrari color code, high-quality brake fluid for high-performance braking systems, and several electronic sensors that the computerized diagnosis had indicated were failing. He worked for the next few weeks like a man possessed by demons or angels, depending on your perspective, sleeping barely 3 hours each night, eating the bare minimum to keep himself going, pushing his body to limits he had never explored before. Don Esteban watched him every day with growing concern, but he didn't say anything directly, just left him cups of hot coffee and bags of sweetbread on cold nights when he stayed up working until dawn. Finally, after almost 7 full weeks of hellish work, total sacrifice, and obsessive dedication, the Ferrari F8 Tributo was completely ready. It gleamed under the industrial lights of the workshop like a jewel freshly mined from the deepest mines and polished to absolute perfection. The engine roared with that powerful and controlled force characteristic of high-performance Italian engines. The leather interiors had been clean, conditioned, and treated until they smelled like new luxury. Every detail, every square millimeter, every component had been restored, repaired, replaced, or improved with desperate love and almost religious attention. Rodrigo stood staring at his finished masterpiece for hours, exhausted to the bone but deeply satisfied. Somewhere deep in his broken soul, he had done the completely impossible with almost non-existent resources. Now came the truly most difficult and terrifying part, finding Isabella Duran Villarreal and confessing the absolute horrible truth to her without filters or excuses. He didn't have to search for her for long. Fate, it seemed, had not yet finished playing its cards. One rainy Thursday afternoon, as Rodrigo was finishing up closing the workshop after a particularly long day, a completely white and immaculate Mercedes-Benz S-Class pulled up directly in front of the main entrance to the Hernandez workshop. A woman of about 38 or 40 years of age stepped out of the car with elegant but tired movements. She had professionally dyed blonde hair, cut to her shoulders in a modern style, impeccably combed and styled despite the rain, and wore a beige designer suit that probably cost more than Rodrigo's entire monthly salary. She wore high-heeled designer shoes that clicked authoritatively on the wet pavement and carried an Italian designer leather bag that was easily worth what Rodrigo earned in 3 months of hard work. Her makeup was perfect, applied by expert hands, and she wore genuine pearl earrings and a watch encrusted with small diamonds. But her jade green eyes had deep, dark circles that even expensive makeup couldn't completely hide. Her hands trembled almost imperceptibly as she opened her bag to take out her phone. This was an extremely wealthy and successful woman who was standing on the very brink of complete emotional and financial collapse, but who was desperately struggling to maintain professional composure and the appearance of control. "Don Esteban Hernandez?" she asked in a polite, refined voice, tinged with deep exhaustion and barely contained despair. "No, ma'am. Don Esteban left for home about an hour ago. I'm Rodrigo Mendoza. I work here as a mechanic. How exactly can I help you this afternoon?" Rodrigo replied, even though he already knew with absolute certainty who this woman was. He knew it in his bones, he felt it in his soul. She took a deep breath that made her shoulders tremble slightly. "I left my Ferrari here, my God, more than 40 days ago. I know perfectly well that it's completely unforgivable and irresponsible. I have no valid excuses. I've been desperately trying to raise enough money to pay for the repairs it needed, but my company is going through very serious financial problems and, well, I guess you don't care about the details. Is the car still here, or have you already sold it legally to recover the storage costs? I wouldn't blame you if you did." Rodrigo felt the concrete floor moving dangerously beneath his feet, as if there were an invisible earthquake. This was the moment he had been waiting for and fearing simultaneously for 7 weeks. The moment of absolute truth. The moment when all his work, all his sacrifice, all his suffering would either mean something or explode in his face. "Yes, ma'am, your Ferrari is definitely still here. And not only that, it's completely ready and restored." Isabella Duran Villarreal blinked several times in a row, genuinely confused. "Ready? Restored? I don't understand any of this. I never authorized any repairs. I haven't spoken to Don Esteban in weeks. I don't have the money available to pay for any mechanical work of that magnitude. There must be some terrible misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding, Mrs. Duran. Please come with me. I need to show you something important." Rodrigo carefully guided her through the dark workshop to the rear parking area, where the Ferrari had been hidden under its gray tarp for so long. He turned on the exterior lights. When Isabella saw her Ferrari completely restored, shining under the lights like a red star fallen from the sky, she instantly brought both trembling hands to her painted mouth. Her green eyes filled with tears that threatened to ruin her to perfect makeup. Her breathing became irregular and shallow. "No, this can't be real. This is impossible." Her voice broke completely on the last word, turning into a choked sob. I restored it myself, Mrs. Duran. I used all my savings, sold all my possessions, worked overtime for almost 2 whole months, and you don't have to pay me anything. Not a single penny. The car is completely yours. Isabella looked at him as if he were speaking in a completely incomprehensible alien language. Why on earth would he do such a thing? A complete stranger. This makes no logical sense. No one does this kind of thing without very important reasons. Rodrigo clutched the worn leather suitcase he had brought with him from his room. Inside were old documents, faded photographs, yellowed newspaper clippings, all the records and evidence of his crime from 20 years ago that he had obsessively kept as personal penance. The whole truth, organized chronologically, because I am no stranger to this car, Mrs. Duran. I know its entire history intimately. I know its darkest secrets, and I desperately need to tell you something that will probably cause you a great deal of pain, but that you absolutely deserve and need to know if there is ever going to be justice or peace in this horrible situation. And there, in that rear parking lot under the night sky with the smell of fresh rain, Rodrigo told her absolutely everything, without omitting a single painful detail. He told her about his desperate and ignorant youth, about Javier El Tuercas Maldonado and his criminal operation to dismantle the theft of his father Alberto Duran's original Ferrari, about how they dismantled it piece by piece in just 3 days of brutal work on the RMO4 November 2004 model, which he had recorded on orders. Of the 20 long years he had carried that crushing guilt, of how life had mysteriously brought him back to this precise moment, to this impossible opportunity for partial redemption. He showed her documents, he showed her photographs, he showed her evidence, he showed her his rotten soul, completely. Isabel listened in absolute penetrating silence. Her beautiful face went through 1,000 different emotions: initial shock, growing fury, deep pain, sorrow, total disbelief, more fury, devastating sadness. When Rodrigo finally finished his full confession, she stared at the restored Ferrari for what seemed like an entire eternity. Tears ran freely down her cheeks, completely ruining her expensive makeup. Finally, she spoke in a trembling voice, charged with contained emotion. My father died obsessively searching for this cursed car. Mr. Mendoza lost his thriving business. He lost his robust health. He lost his joie de vivre. He lost everything that really mattered. All because you and your criminal associates selfishly decided to steal what did not belong to you. I know that perfectly well, ma'am. There is no possible forgiveness for that. I don't expect or ask for your forgiveness. I just desperately wanted you to know the whole truth, and I wanted to restore to this car the dignity and glory that we so cruelly took away from it. Isabella wiped her tears with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup even more. You know what's most ironic and cruel about this whole impossible situation, Mr. Mendoza? I found this Ferrari exactly 4 months ago at a specialized international auction lot for recovered vehicles in Los Angeles. I bought it because it had a strange code engraved on the engine that matched perfectly with the detailed private records my father had obsessively kept for years. I thought I had finally miraculously found my father's lost car, that I could properly honor his memory by restoring it to its original glory. But then my software development company began to collapse financially. Major investors suddenly pulled out. Debts piled up like an avalanche. Clients canceled contracts. I left the car here because I literally didn't even have the money available to pay for the most basic repairs. I was going to sell it desperately to try to save what little I have left of my father's business legacy. He slowly turned to look directly at him with those swollen red-green eyes. And now you, the very person who helped completely destroy my father, appear out of nowhere and voluntarily restore the car for free, using your own scarce money, your own valuable time. What the hell am I supposed to do with this information? What is the right reaction? Rodrigo lowered his head in shame. Whatever you decide is completely valid, ma'am, if you want to call the police immediately. I understand perfectly. If you want to sue me civilly, you have every legal right to do so. If you want to simply spit in my face and never see me again, I completely accept that. I just desperately wanted to do the right thing after 20 years of doing everything wrong. There was such a long, heavy silence that Rodrigo thought she had decided simply never to answer him. But then Isabella spoke again, and what she said changed her entire universe. Exactly 3 weeks ago, while desperately organizing and packing my father's personal belongings to sell the family home and pay off debts, I found a sealed letter hidden in his desk. A letter he wrote shortly before his fatal heart attack, one I had never dared to read until then because I was too afraid of the pain. Do you know what that letter said? His voice softened noticeably, losing some of its sharp edge. It said that he had completely forgiven the thieves who stole the Ferrari, that he had finally understood and accepted that they were probably desperate young people, manipulated by larger and more dangerous organized criminals, that he too had made terrible mistakes in his own youth when he was poor, and that someone merciful had given him a second chance at life that changed his life completely. That hatred and revenge were only poisoning his own soul. My father was a genuinely good man, Mr. Mendoza, too good and compassionate for this cruel world. Rodrigo felt his legs give way completely. He had to lean with both trembling hands on the hot hood of the Ferrari to keep from falling face down on the pavement. You're telling me that he's telling me that my father already forgave you years ago, Mr. Mendoza. From his lonely grave, he put his forgiveness in writing. Isabella walked slowly toward him, her heels echoing with each step on the rain-wet pavement. And if my father could find genuine forgiveness in his broken heart, who the hell am I not to do the same? Especially when I can clearly see all that you have personally sacrificed to make amends for your past mistake. Forgiveness doesn't mean we forget. It means we choose not to let the past poison our future. She extended her thin but firm hand. Rodrigo stared at her for several seconds, completely incredulous at what was happening. Slowly, almost with religious reverence, he shook her hand. The handshake was firm, warm, genuinely sincere. But I have one very important condition, Isabella added in a louder voice. I desperately need a business partner, someone who really understands luxury cars, who has proven integrity, who knows intimately what personal redemption means. I'm going to save my father's company in a completely different way than the original. I'm going to open the best classic in luxury car restoration workshop in all of Mexico, the most professional, the most respected, the most successful. And I want you to be my main partner in that business, 50-50 in everything. Rodrigo couldn't control it anymore. He cried openly, right there in front of that elegant millionaire woman in that humble parking lot. He cried like a lost little boy who finally finds his parents. 20 years of guilt pouring out in hot tears. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve any of this. Listen to me carefully, Mr. Mendoza. No one in this world really deserves second chances. Life doesn't work that way, but sometimes, just sometimes, the universe gives them anyway to those who are willing to fight for them. My father believed in second chances. I believe in second chances. The real question is, do you believe in them? Do you accept this partnership? Yes, yes, Ms. Duran, I accept completely. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of constant activity. Isabella not only generously offered him an equal business partnership, but also advanced him a decent monthly salary while the new business was established and took off. Rodrigo was finally able to rent a much better apartment in a safe neighborhood. He was able to buy nutritious food. He was able to officially regain joint custody of Valeria before the family court judge. Every weekend, his daughter would come running to the new professional workshop. Now clean, well-lit, and equipped with state-of-the-art imported tools, the restored red Ferrari became the proud centerpiece of the main showroom with a polished bronze plaque that read, "In loving memory of Alberto Duran Villarreal, who believed deeply in second chances and forgiveness." Don Esteban Hernandez faithfully received his agreed-upon 30% of the first sales of future restorations and became a respected advisor to the new business. Javier El Tuercas Maldonado was finally arrested by the federal police thanks to extremely detailed anonymous information that Rodrigo provided through secure channels. Valeria met Isabella, and the two quickly developed a beautiful and genuine friendship. The girl affectionately called her Aunt Isa, and they spent entire afternoons talking about everything. But most important of all, what had really changed fundamentally was Rodrigo himself inside. Every morning when he woke up, he looked in the bathroom mirror and saw a completely different man. Not perfect. Definitely not. He still carried deep scars on his soul. He still had occasional nightmares about that horrible night in November 2004, but now he also had true purpose. He had restored dignity. He had his daughter close by, and he had the deep certainty that although the dark past can never be completely erased from memory, a bright future can be consciously built with hands stained with oil, but with a heart finally cleansed of guilt. A full year after that transformative day in the rainy parking lot, Rodrigo and Isabella officially opened Taller Duran Mendoza, a premium classic car restoration shop. The ceremony was relatively simple but deeply emotional. Valeria cut the red ribbon with huge ceremonial scissors that she could barely hold with her small hands. Don Esteban drank sparkling cider and joked affectionately about how he had wisely bet on the right horse from the beginning. New customers admired the cars undergoing restoration, the local media took photographs, and in the exact center of the showroom, perfectly lit, shining under specially designed lights, was the red Ferrari F8 Tributo. It was no longer just a luxury car, it was a living monument to possible redemption, to transformative forgiveness, to second chances that literally save lives and souls. That night, after all the guests had happily gone home, Rodrigo remained alone in the new workshop. He walked slowly to the Ferrari, ran his hand lovingly over the perfectly polished hood, and whispered sincerely, "Thank you, Mr. Alberto. Wherever you are now, I deeply hope you know that your daughter is absolutely extraordinary, that her legacy lives on in beautiful ways you probably never imagined, that your forgiveness saved two broken lives. Rest in peace knowing that you did something important." A soft, warm breeze entered through the open doors of the workshop, gently moving the Mexican flags that hung proudly from the ceiling beams. Rodrigo smiled genuinely. He felt true peace. For the first time in 20 long and painful years, he felt true peace in his soul. The Ferrari had been sitting there for 30 days, forgotten, waiting patiently, waiting for someone specific to finally touch it, waiting for someone to reveal the impossible hidden within. And when that someone finally arrived, it triggered an extraordinary series of events that miraculously transformed two completely shattered lives into something beautiful, something dignified, something deeply real and human. Because sometimes, just sometimes in this cruel world, the dark past returns not to destroy us completely, but to give us the precious opportunity to finally become who we were always meant to be from the beginning. Yeah.